Oh, I was a little bit late today. I hope this is going to come to you in good form. I just realized, boy, it looks like we're low on bandwidth. Hmm. Well, it says I'm streaming. How interesting is that? Boy, sorry to be distracted by this. I think if anybody out there can comment and say that I'm coming through, that would help. Yeah, I'm down to one bar. And so it's important to be connected. Oh, great. Thank you. Aaron, Justina, Mary McDonald. Great. Thank you. So I will continue. Well, today I'm excited about this. I really needed this yesterday. I got, yeah, I got some anxiety yesterday with things happening in our world. And I thought, what I need is groundedness. So I decided to just put together a list of things that I do to handle unsettling news. Here's the deal in life, there's going to be times when something hits you sideways. It's just how these things are. It would be not anxiety if you didn't have something just happen and you weren't prepared for it. That's just how stress works. And so, what is it that we do when we get so out of whack? Well, this is my light. I use this all the time to describe the situation. So I say to people, look, if this light is God, I've got to hold on to God during this hard storm. I just got to hold on. I don't really need to weather this storm by myself. I just need to get grounded here. I just need to remember who I am, who God is, keep perspective. I believe a lot of our anxieties are rooted in just losing perspective. And getting grounded in many different ways is only going to help us. Um, so let's go to our handout here. Let's see if I can go there in the most efficient way. In fact, I'm going to get rid of myself there and see if I can't begin to share a little bit. We're going to go through a whole bunch of list of things. I kind of categorize things. What is going to help bring us the most quick way to start to feel okay? It sounds funny to put essential oils just at the top of the list, but this by no means is meant to be exhaustive. There's other ways to get grounded, but the essential oils affect our limbic system. Our nasal cavity really goes right into the limbic system. So when I'm stressed, I go right to frankincense, lavender. I'm not a herbologist when I talk about it, but I just start to use some of that. I know people who come in just so choked up by anxiety. I give them a little Kleenex with a little bit of drop of oil. I first say, does this smell good to you? They go, my gosh, it does. I feel like, please help me. Um, that leads us to breathing exercises. All of us, it seems, part of our condition is when we're really stressed, when we're frightened, we really just, our breathing changes. A lot of us are wearing Fitbits. If we had a Fitbit that could measure oxygen or how many times we're breathing, my guess is that when we're stressed, we're not breathing, because I've been learning to breathe for a couple of, well, longer than that, but I'll just say many years, where I find myself not breathing. So there's lots of breathing techniques out there. When we're panicked, when we're anxious, we're often rushed. And so this is a time to slow down, get grounded, stop thinking so fast, stop moving so fast, to try to slow down. There is an exception here. If someone's having a panic attack, sometimes going on a walk helps. Getting up and moving around helps burn off that energy, that adrenaline. But a lot of times we bring anxiety upon us in a fast-paced way. Um, literal grounding. This is gonna sound funny, um, but there is a movie called Grounding, the Grounding movie, and it's this idea that we're really detached from the earth, and I'm not into earth worship or anything like that, but the concept is that since we've learned to wear shoes that are insulated, we're not really putting our feet on the ground. And the people will actually get a voltmeter. Actually, I got one, and it's really weird. If you just go outside, stick your feet in the ground, on the soil, on cement works, rocks work, wood doesn't work as well. Certainly, asphalt doesn't work. But if you actually go run outside, put your, you know, body where it can have contact to the earth, it takes away some of the electrical pollution. Again, we're surrounded with electricity, just surrounded by this. And if you look online, you'll see the voltmeter where you're acting as an antenna. You're grabbing some of this energy. And so my son and I, and we actually ran outside during this movie. I knew of the movie. It's Earthing, sorry, Earthing movie, not Grounding movie, but Earthing movie. Now, not Earthling. Earthling is a vegan movie, but Earthing. I have to say it's very relaxing. And I started walking around the neighborhood barefoot, which will wake you up. It certainly takes you away from your whatever your troubles are, because now you're focused on your feet. Um, Wet grass seems to affect it a little bit better as well. We are electrical. We are mysteriously made, so that may help. I've In the middle of the day, I've been so stressed with the work that I do and the people that are coming to me. There's a sense that I pick up on their stress. Going outside, taking my shoes off, taking my socks off, and just sitting in the grass actually has helped me. And then obviously I pray a prayer and a whole bunch of other things. So grounding, literal grounding, walking. By walking, we're using both sides of our hemisphere in our brain. It's just good for us. Get up and walk around. Now, if you feel very unstable, very stressed, um, and I'm going to talk about my disclaimer in a minute, but very stressed to where it doesn't feel right, then don't go walking. By the way, this is a good time to do the disclaimer. This is not meant to be therapy. This is meant to be educational. That could really help you a lot. But obviously, therapy involves two live people in a room together, one trained to help the other. And, a video can't replace that. I can't give blanket advice on um, situations. So I trust that you would reach out to a mental health professional. This is very much coaching in a sense that I'm giving you tools and then you can run and use them. Um, Sleep. Sometimes when we are so stressed, we're so anxious, we need to just curl up, get a blanket, wrap up, and be okay. I might as well talk about the bear. This may sound funny. It may sound really funny that I'm grabbing a bear here, and you may think I'm a nut. But the reality is that holding something helps us feel better. I feel better already. Um, is it fattening? No. Is it expensive? Well, no, depending on the bear. Um, is it illegal? No. Is it harmful to your health? No, there's so much good that can just holding something to help you feel better. Now, holding a bear may not actually help you. If I mean, not one of these things is going to help everybody, but it's a tool. It's grounding. What did we do when we were children, when we were really frightened and our parents weren't there? What did we do when we were sleeping through the night and it might have been dark and we were afraid of the dark? We held on to a bear. This is a God given desire for bonding and taking care of ourselves in this way. It's a self soothing behavior. And now, actually, I'm a little bit reluctant to let go of the bear. This brings up a point. All these things I forget to do. I forget to do them. It's just kind of how we are, or how I am. I made a list. This is a good list. And I basically know what to do, but there's sometimes we just need to write it out for us in black and white. Um, so anyway, the bear. Um, yeah, the bear is not going to get to sit with us. Now that brings up you can have a live animal help you that's not on our list. My mother and I were in the hospital together a couple of weeks ago. She had some serious surgery, and I was hopefully, by God's grace, there to comfort her, to remind her that she's in a hospital. She wanted a dog from where she lives, and my sister just happened to have a dog that was stuffed. Um, and so I pulled it out of a bag and I said, "Look, we have a dog here." And it was like magic. And so she bonded with that dog. She took care of that dog. Her memory and confusion is a little bit there, obviously, with age and medications and pain. She had a colon surgery, a big deal. So holding that dog helped her. Focusing on that dog helped her. The fact that that dog was soft helped her uh, not focus on the pain that she was going through. Um, and I can tell you other stories about the dog, but yeah, anything from the dog. She was afraid the dog was going to get a sunburn. She called me up, or I called her up, and she says, "I need to know what to get my dog for food." It's like, well, the dog's stuffed. I was making a joke in my mind. Anyway, humor. Um, but anyway, stuffed animals. Um, Comfort space. So, this in my book is anything that we do that helps us feel better. And I will say that when we're stressed, often we may have clutter, we may have the things that are messing us up just right there, kind of causing issues for us. So, cleaning the space around you, helping you find um, a peaceful setting, I would highly recommend having a comfort space. I have a prayer room, and it's now much better looking after I cleaned it out and rearranged the room a bit, and because it began to be a storage room combination thing. But I have candles and icons. I'm Orthodox Christian, and I have books, which are comforting to me. It's grounding space. If and I will say that there's probably three major things that happened this last year that really threw me like whoa. And I won't go into all of them, but some of them being like my mother had to have a surgery at the same time my mother-in-law has cancer, which looks like it's terminal. And at the same time, um, there was one other thing. Oh, my wife. I mean, like what we've been through, it's been crazy. I had to go through some testing in the last year to make sure I didn't have cancer because I had a prostate scare. where the numbers were so high, they just, and I know that there's controversy there, and you guys were probably with me with that. My wife then had a scan, and there was something suspicious with her lymph node. And so we just got word that her blood work is good. But in the meantime, what do? You go do these things that help ground you in what you know so that you're there, to weather the storm. You hold on to what you know. Um, I put relational grounding because as much as you can go to an essential oil or a teddy bear, really, how powerful is it that you call someone you know loves you, that you know always has your best interests in mind? And obviously the top in my list is God. That I comfort myself with these words that God has never failed me. Now there's times I lose perspective. I start to go, oh no, something in life takes my breath away. But it's like, God, you have always been so good to me. There's never anything, any time you haven't been there for me. And all I have to do is reach out to you. And he always has my good, even though I don't understand it, even though there seems to be a stockpile of drama. He's good. He and well, maybe I showed this, maybe I didn't. I was starting to get a little bit breath taken away with um, a friend who wrote a blog who talked about one of the best arguments for atheism, and I think it fits here. Just doing a side note, it's hard for me not to believe in God. And I really respect people that struggle with God and does God exist, because I just think it's really important to be respectful. But this gentleman, who is a very strong Christian, suggested that one of the arguments, a good argument that atheists have, is if God is so good, how can there be such evil? And we have these classic little things that we say to ourselves, and I won't get into all that, but in fact, I'll try to actually post the blog. That would be good for me to post that blog. Like, how can it be that someone's tortured, or a baby's born and going to live 5 years of their life dying from cancer slowly? Like, it doesn't make sense. So I was praying because I kind of really got kind of glum there. I say, God, here, whatever. Like, you try to reveal to me something that would help me. Two things came to mind, and actually came through a TV show, a Christian movie. But one thing had to do with this life is so infinitesimally small compared to eternity, that this is just like going through a procedure at a hospital that seems, and I've been there, where this can't be right. What they're doing to me is so not right. And then you get well because of that procedure. That's what this world is. It's a holding place for us to be able to be healed in soul. And there's pain and suffering in this world that's beyond belief. It's beyond our belief. But, and we'll get to that. Like, this grounds me to realize there, I can't. And the next thing I say is, that I learned, is that I can't even begin to understand the mysteries of God. And I know that a lot of people say that as a cop out, but how many other things do we not understand? So we'll get to that, because I should get off this philosophy and get into the practical here. Um, Reaching out to a family member. There are family members I can call and I just feel better. They just listen. They just listen to me. I have friends, dear friends, that I can just call. And I realize there's some people that don't have friends. Um, I would pray and try to get friends. I think it's really important to have someone, and some of it is we're so afraid of letting go of control, letting someone love us and help us, that we may be holding back anyway. But yeah, reach out for those friends, which leads us to 12 steps. Like I do a lot of work with 12 steps. There are people that don't know anybody, they're falling apart, losing everything. They go to an anonymous group of people who share the same problem. And within a couple of days, they have friends they feel like they can pour out their heart to. That's very grounding to call a sponsor, to call a friend. In 12 step, a lot of times they have you call someone every day. I put reaching out. When we are falling apart, reaching out seems to be a good idea. Isolation doesn't seem to be a good idea. Emotional comfort. So I have an emotional category for emotional grounding. In fact, a better way to use this form, I should have put emotional grounding, mental grounding, spiritual grounding. So emotional grounding is anything that we do that provides true support for the feelings we're feeling. um, Tonight was going to be the night of props, but I was going to grab a bag of chips and have a TV set and I don't know, something else that's pretty handy and say, I'm grounding, I'm grounding. Um, a bag of chips has never really helped ground me. Chocolate has never really grounded me. Any other addictions has never really grounded me. That they're fake grounding experiences. How can I say that? Well, here's the thing, it takes me away from what's really going on in me, it numbs me. True grounding helps you feel what you're feeling, but have the strength and resource to be okay with it. Avoidance is not necessarily grounding, but I also think there's no hard and fast rules. If you need to set something aside for a moment, I think that's a good idea, with the notion that you're just not avoiding it, because then we stockpile these things and then it's like a closet that begins, or a freezer that begins to thaw, and all these emotions are are thawing, and you're unraveling and you feel very out of control, etc. And that's what the pandemic did for a lot of people, is wherever we were, it taught us, well, where do I have room for growth, you know? So emotional grounding. I didn't know where to put music. Music is interesting. How can we not look to music to help us at times to get grounded? If you have a favorite song, if you have something that gets stuck in your head and plays in the back of your mind, spiritual songs can be very useful. There are songs that are so helpful. My again, a lot of my world is was with my mother for 8 days in the hospital, but she likes Andre Rieu, the Dutch, not composer but conductor, who has a live orchestra band. I mean, it's just incredible. I watch that and just cry. It's just so beautiful. It's unreal. And we started grounding ourselves from time to time during the pandemic, watching that. I turned my mom on to that, and she just loves it. She just absolutely loves it. It didn't matter what pain or suffering. I'd say, "Are you up for that?" And she would say, "Sure." And we'd watch something and it would calm us down. There's something about beauty that helps us. And I was crying tears of joy, knowing that in the midst of this difficult world, there are at least one night for these people, they were experiencing such joy. Oops, the other direction. Less of me, more of the principles. Um, There are times when grounding actually is just expressing the feelings, crying, the tears, feeling the feelings of fear. The problem with anxiety is it's really, and I heard a professional say this, that it's really an avoidance problem. If you wanted to boil it all down, it's kind of an avoidance of feeling out of control. And if we can embrace being out of control, that's a good thing. Okay. We're going to go through these in a cursory way. I think that's what's important to not get too waylaid on some of these. Um, Mental grounding, books. I know there are some books that I have that I can just pick up and I start to feel better, whether it's the Bible, whether it's a spiritual book, or just books on mental health. And then the other side of mental is writing down things we know to be true. Um, I got this first from a Catholic priest who is a Christian who Henri Nouwen or Henri Nouwen. He wrote a book. Oh, gee. It's a really good book. It's something to do with love. Oh, boy. I should remember this. But the gist, and I'll put it in the description. Um, the book has to do with his journey where he falls apart as a person. He goes in such a dark, deep depression that he barely recognizes himself. He says that in the midst of such darkness, he never really lost his ability to write. He Now my mind wants to go to what that book is. I should have brought it. It's at home. Um, but he never lost his ability to write. Um, and so he writes these journals to himself. And he called them spiritual imperatives. And he didn't write big, long winded anything. What he did is he just wrote what he called these spiritual imperatives to himself. So, like, and then after 7 years or so many years, they decided to publish it. I will say that it's kind of useful. And when I was really down and out, I actually got the book. Then it came back into my way again. A family member was starting to read it, and it's like, oh, yeah, that was good. Um, like one of the phrases he used was work around the abyss. If you work too directly into it or stare too deep into it, it is overwhelming. It is better to work at a distance around the abyss in your life. It reminds me of a Saint Silouan who said, or was it Saint Sophrony, but they were both interesting people who said, push yourself close to the abyss. And when you're too far there, just step back and have a cup of tea, which is a strange thing for a saint to say because most saintly things don't involve cups of tea. But what I love about that is that there is balance. That if you really get to know yourself, if you really plunge into God, you're going to have some anxiety. It's just a given. But there has to be a balance of not going into the abyss, but to stepping back just a little bit and having a cup of tea. I'll try to post who actually said that. Saint Sophrony was a disciple of Saint Silouan. Saint Silouan was a Russian saint who went to a place called Mount Athos, and then discipled Saint Sophrony, who actually started a monastery in England, who then I've had friends visit there. And then, he passed away enough to where there's now a disciple called Elder Zachariah. All these people are online, incredible, very helpful for any kind of groundedness. Actually, memes. This brings us to a meme, and memes can be very useful. Um, I have the church where I walk downstairs, and people have posted these memes on a bulletin board, and I'm stopping, taking picture after picture. It's like, yes, yes. And they all have to do with, like one saint said that he thought he would go crazy with what is going on in the world if he did not know and believe in his heart that God is in control of all things. Thank you, JPage 99999. Thank you. It's he posts, stand on the edge of the abyss, and when you feel that it is beyond your strength, break off and have a cup of tea. And that's Elder Sophroni Sakharov of Essex, England. Thank you. What help? Ask and you shall receive. Um, yeah, it's better getting it straight. When it's beyond your strength, step back and have that cup of tea. Tea, the biological help there. When I was in Scotland, we had tea a lot uh, throughout the day. It was just an interesting way to live, is to go on a hike, to go on a boat, to be going to this holy site. And then, okay, now it's time for tea. And what do you do during tea? You just sit and have a cup of tea. You sit and you just ponder and pray and get ready for the next thing. We probably had tea probably 2 or 3 times a day, not high tea. I don't even know if we had a biscuit, as they call them. That's cookies, um, but really powerful. Um, we'll come back to the writing down things we know to be true at the end here, because there's a few things I want to get through. So, spiritual grounding, and some of this is just obvious to people that have a spiritual life, but prayer to God. Recently, I read writing a saint that said that stillness could involve knitting or just sitting and doing some kind of handiwork, that it was okay to do that. I love knitting so much that I almost felt, guilty doing it. I try to pray while doing it. Now, my daughter from my birthday got me some yarn. I picked it up about 10 years ago, and this is extra fuzzy. I thought, how am I going to make something from this? No offense, Elizabeth, but it's like, that's awfully delicate for me to wear. And so someone suggested mix it with this. And so then this is what you get, this fluffiness. And what's interesting about this is it turns it kind of a different color, but it makes it really soft, because this little tiny one is silk and mohair. And it's very strong. But what's weird is, maybe in life you got to have something more rugged and something soft with it. You just can't have everything be soft and too much softness. So anyway, meditative things. Since I'm into props, being able to have a little flip thing. These are the feelings emojis. Kids and people like this, cantankerous. If you can label your feelings, it gives you groundedness. We know this from the expressive writing people. What they discovered, and I've talked lots about expressive writing, that how does it help chronic pain? How does it help anxiety? If we just sit down, run, and do it when we're having a panic attack, which you may find, or not always panic attack, but anxious, you start writing down. What they discovered is that taking the feeling from the limbic system and putting it into the prefrontal cortex and talking it out with people is useful, but somehow writing it out slowed down the process. This is another way to have a label for what you're feeling. Like I was feeling really embarrassed about something in my life, um, which many of you might have known. But um, oh well, at one time I had a PhD. Turns out the school was pretty corrupt, so I gave it up, and I felt so embarrassed. Like, wow, this school was so corrupt. So I had a friend say, I couldn't let it go. Like I just felt like I should have known better. Like what's wrong with me? I did the work, but it turned out it was like classified as a diploma mill. But what's interesting is he said, "Oh, that's wounded pride," and it's like having the label "wounded pride" really helped. Like my pride was wounded that I should have known better, and having the right word to describe what you're feeling is really useful, really useful. So I do think feeling charts are useful. I don't always run to them, but really going through and trying to say, what am I feeling? Um, I can say embarrassed or furious or frustrated. And that's what I did a little bit with what I heard about things happening with our governor. I'll just say with our government and craziness. Um, Getting feelings out in a constructive way is what I would say something useful. Silence. There are saints that say we cannot be saved unless we're silent. Saved meaning healed. And if we stay so noisy, so busy, we won't really be able to hear God. We won't be able to really know ourselves. So it's really important to be with silence. And during that silence, you can feel some anxiety. It's okay to feel it. Reaching out to Him, obviously, God, reaching out to others, the act of reaching out can be grounding. A prayer I pray is, what is the next right thing or task? I get that from 12 step people. A gratitude list. Gratitude is really important. And I went to a monastery in May with my son, and I go all the way there to have a really good experience. What's fascinating is the father who is guiding me. He says, you really could do well with just writing out every good thing that's happened to you. He says, you have so much, it'll bring you perspective. And it's like, okay, I will treat this seriously. And so really try to do that. Because I realized I get diluted in that I miss out on all that's good in my life. The internet and YouTube, FearTube is just waiting to tell me something terrible about the world. And the media is selling the same product, whether on one side or the other side, it's fear. It's fear mongering, and fear sells. People feel like if I just don't know what's going on, it's really going to be bad for me. And here's another powerful question, which I'll try to put in the description box. How is this going to affect you personally anyway? And there was a good friend of mine who he's out in Idaho. He said, how is, we're talking about the things in the world and we're talking about this and that and all this stuff. And it's like, well, how does this affect you? 99% of the time, it doesn't even affect me. Not affect me at all. Yeah, yeah. So I think sometimes we collect stuff or the stuff comes looking for us, terrorizing thoughts. Doing one thing at a time, what is the next right thing you want me to do here? And it may be in the middle of anxiety, pray, call someone. And that's what I did yesterday, call someone. I went on a walk. I walked down to the beach. I'm huffing and puffing. Then I called someone who wasn't party to the drama of what was going on, of what I was fearful, but something that's supportive 12 step that was totally unrelated. And it got my mind off of this drama onto that's right. I have a great friend who uses this phrase, that's right. And he says it like when we say, like if I said, well, God loves us, that's right. God knows everything, that's right. It's all going to work out in the end, that's right. None of this is by accident. And I had another friend who said, it's not like God saying, oh no, the the governor did this, or oh no, what am I going to do, America went this direction, oh no, like what if America becomes communist, oh no. I think we were using this phrase. I said, well, if we go communist, and it's not like God's up there going, oh no, they're becoming Soviet, like Soviet Union all over again. No, if we're going that path, then God give me the strength to be able to endure such path. If He wants me to help fight against that path, then let me fight against that. And according to my other friend, who would say, how does this affect you personally? Well, right now, a lot of this drama doesn't affect me. Now, if I'm praying, God, what is the next right thing you want me to do? Maybe it's to protest. Maybe it is to write a letter or something to try to, but certainly not in my own strength. Certainly not in my own strength, because that will make us stressed. And that's actually, boy, I have a lot to cover, but I'm excited to keep it moving. I'm just going to keep this moving. Um, Thankfulness box. I have made a box, and I was going to bring a box, but this is a box I made. Go to Michael's. You can write things aside. And in it, you can spray paint it. You can put in cards. You put in what you want to write down, prayer requests. I did this for a while. It's incredible. You just write out what your concern is. You cast all your cares upon Him, for He cares for you. The world, or it says that cast, meaning the same that as you would cast a demon. Then they say on New Year's, go read through the box. If you're having a bad day, you go read through the box, and it's like we so forget what we pray for. A shout out to John Miller. Good to hear from you, John. Blessed feast to you as well. For those who actually are wondering about a feast, well, uh, August 15th, we commemorate Mary. This is getting personal, but Mary, the mother of Christ, falling asleep and going to heaven. And she didn't see death like a normal Christian would. So they call that the Holy Dormition. And we had a fasting period for 2 weeks. And so yesterday was the feast. Let's see. Let's go back to our list here. So that thankfulness box, journaling, really powerful. We talked about how journaling can ground you in expressive writing. Okay. Let's go to something else I prepared today for. Let's see. Remove. Share. Stop screen. I need to share the other screen there. So this one. And hopefully you see that. So here's a given. And I've shared this on another video, but if you want to boil anxiety down in a nutshell, this is where it's at. All of us have an unknown future. Every type of fear is going to be about an unknown future. I don't know if we're going to have well, I don't know if we're afraid of disasters, natural disasters, health issues, food, clothing, whether people will like us at the party or not, um, if our children are going to be safe coming home, on a ferry trip across the water, an airplane ride. Um, it's future oriented. See, fear is maybe if I'm afraid of a bear or a cat scratching me, well, that's kind of silly, but um, dogs, snakes, it's very specific, but anxiety is usually always about the future. Okay. This is how it really is. Now, a lot of people are in denial about an unknown future. They just act as though, oh, I'll see you next week. Now, the fearful person says, well, if I live, if I don't get a blood clot, um, but I hope I'll see you next week. Yeah, that unknown future is what we have. So if we're in touch, we're going to be having that. So what happens is we try to control that unknown future. It seems to be part of the disease. So we try to control with our thinking about it, our worry, our efforts, saying things. Um, it's just what we do. And you can look at your life and ask yourself, how do you try to control the future unknown events? Guess what? If you do that, this is what you're going to get across the board. You're going to get anxiety. Along with that, you're going to get stress, fears, avoidance. You'll get so stressed that you may avoid the whole thing. You don't want to know what the blood work says, or you don't want to do. I won't go to the party because they'll. I just can't face the future that they might actually tease me. Uh, I may shut down, just fall apart, panic, muscle tension. You can tell when you're anxious and holding on, control with stomach issues, urinary issues, digestive complaints, headaches. People that are arguing or trying to control the other person's viewpoint versus let it go. Just let them think whatever they think. Competing. Okay. So, what is the solution? Well, the solution is we start off with letting go of control. Surrender. I like the word surrender, and what will eventually happen is these things start to go away. If you surrender, why do I like the word surrender? Because you surrender to a person. If we surrender our life to God's, and I'm very preachy today, I'm not meant to be, but I'm not sure if psychology alone is really enough to help people overcome the things that they're really struggling with, especially things like pandemics. If all medical science was perfect, there was no greed, there was no government control, whole bunch of drama, and it just worked perfectly. Sure, we'll just take the serum, and I'm not anti-vax or pro-vax when I say this, but I mean the serum will just help us. It'll just save everything. Cool. And often when we're like that, we don't involve God in those situations. Like if I know how to put on my clothes, this is funny, but if I just jump out of bed and put on my clothes, I don't maybe think about needing God's help. But if I have a stroke, I may be doing the best I know to do to be able to move my arms and my legs. And I might be saying, God, help me here. I think there's something really powerful about illness because it teaches us to be humble and it helps us see that I get to see you next week by God's grace. A humble approach would be, I hope this medicine works. I hope that learning these tools will help you. But if you leave with nothing else tonight, just understand that surrender to God will bring you peace. And I've experienced this. You will start to have peace that you can't quite understand. Like I was feeling horrible, horrible, horrible. And now I feel more okay. And it did not involve me trying to control the external environment. It came from me surrendering, letting go, giving up. Um, what else? I like the phrase whatever. Whatever you decide, God, whatever. And that feels very ungrounded, by the way. I mean, I'll be honest, to just surrender to God feels like that's the opposite of grounding. It feels like I'd be stepping off the cliff and saying, okay, catch me. But it seems to work better when I trust Him than when I trust myself. It just seems to work better that way. That's my experience that I can share. What I can tell you is holding on to control. Oh yeah, that works really well. Um, there's a list of fears. Do we have time to talk about it? So here's another assignment. If you want a very powerful assignment, and boy, I'm not sure I've prepared to get this up on the screen, but I'm just going to do this and see if I can't get it to. Um, I'll stop sharing here. Um, Stop screen, share. Okay. I was told that the software did not want to open itself up. Um, so I should talk about. So what you do is you get a piece of paper and pencil. I like pencil lately, but you just write out your fears. Anything that comes out up to mind, you just start writing. And what you're going to find is that you might, if you're like me, you might be embarrassed at what you write. You might be kind of shocked at just, and then you learn that some of these things aren't even from you, that they're from the enemy. Okay, hooray. I'm going to open this up. Thanks for your patience. Okay, let's see. I thought this was pretty interesting to share. Share screen. And here we're going to see if I can get that to work. Um, let's see. Okay. Yep. Here it is. Good. Yay. It worked. So I just need to get to that screen there. So write out your fears. I'm going to lose my job because of the government is forcing me to get a vaccine. I'm afraid of getting sick from the vaccine. I'm afraid of not getting the vaccine and then getting COVID and then people calling me stupid. I'm afraid of not having money. I'm afraid of getting ill from the stress of all the things happening in the world. I'm afraid my mom will die because she didn't get the vaccine and my family will blame me. I'm afraid she will die when she gets her second dose of the vaccine. I'm afraid that they're going to put people in prison over not getting the vaccine. I'm afraid that I will get a blood clot. I'm afraid that my wife is going to have an affair. I'm afraid that my children are not going to be able to survive what is going on in the world. And you can add grandchildren to that. I'm afraid of economic collapse. I'm afraid that I won't be able to handle the stress of my family members' cancer. I'm afraid of what I feel when they die. Like I'm afraid I won't be able to feel those feelings and survive. I'm afraid that I will be judged at church for wearing a mask. I'm afraid that people won't accept me. I'm afraid I won't be able to get out of this depression and then I will really get sick. I'm afraid we're going to lose the condo. I'm afraid that my dog is going to die. I'm afraid to drive on the freeway. I am going to get into a car accident, and then what? And add to it, I could be in a wheelchair. What am I going to do then? Who will take care of me? I'm afraid that I will never find a soulmate. I'm afraid of getting COVID long haulers disease. I'm afraid that we'll never have our daughter talk to us again. Okay, so some of these I just pulled out of thin air. Some of these I've been tempted to think, but I could go on and on. I've heard people share these things. So what you do is you write out your list of fears, get them on paper, and from there you ask yourself, why do I have these fears? Like, why am I afraid of this? And then you start to realize some of these aren't really based in too much of a reality, but some of these are based in, well, what will people think of me is probably envy. All those health related ones is me taking too much concern for my health. Um, Finances is probably another rooted one, like how are we going to have provision, um, etc. And what you're going to find is there's a root area in our lives that always really relates to self reliance. And I get this from the AA people. It says that every fear we'll have will be rooted in self reliance. And that's where it comes down to that if I've dead to myself, alive in Christ, and really trusting Christ, then I'm not trusting in my own resources. And that's why I cringe when I hear phrases like believe in yourself. That's like, oh, how stupid is that? Just that's like as stupid as saying just say no to any kind of drug or problem you're facing. Wow, if it was that easy, why don't all those people say no? Just stop lying. Stop cheating the American public. Stop, no. These problems are bigger than ourselves, and so we have no choice, in my experience, except to surrender them. And so I like the task of writing out what they call a fear inventory. You ask yourself, why do you have them? And it says that on this basis of trusting infinite God, and I would add infinite, loving, wise, ever present, omnipresent, there from the beginning and the end, God, rather than our finite selves. Trust infinite God rather than our finite selves. And with this attitude, we're going to be able to match calamity with serenity. So that's probably a good way to end today. I appreciate any comments you want to leave and any suggestions. We're going to go once a week. It looks like right now, Mondays wouldn't be a bad day to do this. So I think I'm going to be with you next Monday, and we're going to just keep on giving tools to help with anxiety, to help us find peace. So you guys take care. Have a blessed day.